Shall we indulge in a little bit of silliness today? So for today's page I'm working in my 10x10 journal and I've dusted off my gelatos. And this is one of those instances where you change your mind on the fly. Originally I was going to try and blend the gelatos in the page or on the page with my finger as I was going, and then I got so far and then decided to hell with that and just decided to get all the gelatos down on the page, and then I'm going to blend them all with a baby wipe. Blending with a baby wipe is much faster and far more satisfying than using your finger. Did I just say that? Next up, it's the eye chart stencil from Tim Holtz. I'm going to be doing a little bit of a ghosting technique with the baby wipe, and I'm going to rub the colour back off the page through the stencil like so. And I'm going to be doing exactly the same thing with another one of Tim Holtz's layering stencils. This is the Rays. And just to fill in a few of the gaps, I'm using the cargo stencil also. And then just to dry off the page, I'm just going to grab my heat gun and just give it the once over just to make sure it's all nice and dry before I move on and start adding on my collage elements. Today I'm using the Collage Page from Tracy Bautista and Aleen's, and this is the matte. I'm putting a generous amount on the page and then I'm going to stick my collage element over the top. Now, I'm not bothered about getting any wrinkles in this or any see-through either. You'll see why later on, because I'm going to be covering over the top part of this image anyway. So a little bit of wrinklage and a little bit of show through isn't really going to affect the overall page when it's done. So once I'm happy that it's stuck down and it's nice and sealed, I'm going to bring up the heat gun and just give it a quick dry before moving on. Next up, I've already cut out, using my Big Shot, a lot of bulk text flowers using the Tattered Florals BIGZ die from Tim Holtz and Sizzix. As you can see, I have quite a few, and using the Collage Page again, I'm going to just stick these down onto the page. Now, there is a little bleg where that flower just was there, but I will sort that out later on. So adding a lot of that Collage Page onto the page again, because there's lots of those flowers that I want to stick down. So I'm just going to create a huge cluster of these flowers out of the book pages, over the top of her head and down the sides of her face as well. Just sticking down the last few remaining flowers that I've got left, so just sticking those to the sides of the pages, kind of symmetrical. I haven't really tried to be too symmetrical. I don't mind it being a bit of a jumble, but you know, just wanted to use up the last few bits and pieces. And then it's out with the heat gun, give it all a really good dry before moving on. To add a little bit of colour into that flower cluster, I've punched out, or I've die cut out some of the same shapes just out of some papers that have been sitting in my stash for a long time. So I've pulled out some red colours and pink colours just so I can add a little bit of colour into a head. Now I want to add a contrasting colour into the centre of the flowers, so I'm going to be using an old 3/16 hand punch from Stampin' Up and a yellow sheet of paper from my stash, and I'm just going to punch out some small circles and stick those down just using craft glue, which is just your standard school glue, PVA. I'm just going to put a little dot in the middle of each one of those flowers and stick down a little yellow centre. And while I've got the hand punch out, I'm going to sort out that little mark on her cheek in the only way that I can cover it up really. I'm going to punch out a little bit of black card, and then I'm going to stick it down over the top as a beauty spot. So I'm happy with the way that the page is transforming, so it's time to add some journaling. So for that I have my Dymo LETRA tag label maker, and then I'm going to, it's quite a long phrase that I want to add to the page, so that's only half of it that you've seen there. So I'm going to cut that up into 3 blocks and then stick that down and then type out the remaining section of the phrase that I want to use. I'm just playing with position on the page. I eventually go for 2 blocks down the left and the right hand side of the face, as you will see. So I'm happy with that positioning, so it's time to just type out the last part of my journaling quote that I want to add to the page, and I'll just print it out, cut it into 3 blocks and add those to the right hand side of the face. So now that I've got my journaling quote stuck down, it's self-adhesive, so it doesn't really need any glue over the top. I'm just trimming off the excess of those flowers just off camera. It didn't take very long, there was only 2 of them. So I'm now ready to move on to start adding a little bit of detail to the page. And for that, I've got my number 5 Pigma Micron pen, and I'm just finishing off the letters because some of them didn't print out quite well. I think my LETRA target label maker is on its last legs, so it may be time to replace it. But in the meantime, I shall continue to use it. I can just finish the letters off if any of them are not printed quite right, just using the pen like I have done on this page. So as you can see, I'm just going around the word blocks with that Pigma Micro pen, and I'm just adding some scribbly doodly lines, and then I'm going to start adding some doodling with the football pen. So this is the broad football pen. Now apparently you can get the football pen in different sized nibs. I didn't know that, so I'm going to have to try and find what other sizes they have available. So I'm just going to go around the page with the black football pen, just adding in some doodling, creating some interest out of the collage elements that I've stuck down. So as you can see, adding those black scribbly lines and doodles around all the flowers really helps to pull the page together and give it that kind of cohesive look that we all hope that we achieve on our art journal pages. So just to finish off, I wanted to add some white highlights, so I've brought out my SIGNO white opaque rollerball pen, and I'm just going to add some white dots into the page too. And then I decided to break out one of my Posca pens, which I haven't used for absolutely ages, and add some white dots using that also. I have about half a dozen of these Posca pens and I never use them. Mostly all white in different size nibs, but I just don't tend to use them all that often because I find that they don't necessarily stay as opaque as they should do. As you can see, some of them start to disappear and fade into the background, which is one of the reasons why they don't come out very often. And I think that's it for me. I'm not going to do any more to this page, so I'm just going to sign and date it. And then I suddenly remembered that I used to stamp the date on my art journal pages. So I find my date stamp, try and get it to the right date. Now, it did actually say 2014, which shows you the last time I actually used this. Now, this is just a date stamp that I picked up for cheap from Staples. So I'm just going to put today's date on it. And I'm recording this on the 15th of November, and I think I'm going to start using this date stamp more often. And that's it for me. Page complete. I'm done and dusted. So I hope you've enjoyed this little bit of silliness today. If you have, please remember to give it a thumbs up, share the video with all your friends, and if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel already, you can do so by clicking the button at the end of the video. That's all from me for today. I'll see you all again real soon. Bye for now.